Good evening, everyone. It is evening. It's a long time since we have had this Wednesday night practice quite like this. So it's just a pleasure to be here. So we have a monk visiting us. Fujaku is his name. And he has been practicing at Whidbey Island at Harada Shodo Roshi's temple on Whidbey Island. And he's also been practicing in Japan at Sogenji, Harada Roshi's temple in Japan. And he also was originally practicing at Dharma for many years. So he came and he started looking around. He is also a carpenter. His profession is carpentry. And as soon as he got here, he looked around to see what he could do, what kinds of things were there for him to help us with. And he took a look at the banister and immediately said, I could do that. I'll take care of that. So we have a beautiful new banister at our entryway, which has only taken us 20 years. We had so many people mystified by what to do about that banister. So I've been calling him and introducing him as Sidney Poitier, which I hope you remember, lilies of the field. So remember the guy who comes and shows up at the convent in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and builds this incredible staircase. And if you've ever seen it in Santa Fe, it's absolutely miraculous. And then before they can say thank you, he disappears. So it's sort of this appearance of this amazing, this saint who shows up and does this wonderful work that nobody else can do. So, so Fujaku has been doing that. And today he built a bridge over along the path of the ancestors. And he also repaired the bridge at the entrance because it had one of its slats was just totally rotted out. And so he repaired that and helped us find a way to keep the handicapped bathroom sink from falling down off the wall. And tomorrow he's going to paint the bathroom door upstairs in the residency, and he's going to check the light in the dining room, all these things that we have had on our list for ages and ages and ages. And so it's very fantastic to have a monk come and just focus on these things. And, you know, as I say, he's a carpenter by profession. And so he just knows how to do things. And that's very stunning. And all of us will say, in every family, you should have a carpenter and a plumber and maybe a dentist and a lawyer and an attorney, something like that. So anyway, so it's a pleasure to have him. So somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago or a week ago or something after Saturday practice, I was talking about incense. And so somebody asked me if I would talk a little bit then about the meaning of some of our practice, some of the underlying meanings of our forms. And I'll only talk about a few because it would be nice also to have some conversation with you and to be able to talk. So, and you know, there is deep consideration in just about everything that we do in Zen practice. Oh, we come out of Japan, and Japan is a very, very old culture. And so they are steeped in deep meanings in the simple matters of flowers or rice or all of the aspects of Japanese culture have deep, deep meanings. And when you go to Japan, at least when I go to Japan, I feel very much like a barbarian because in our American culture, it seems to me that we tend to be a little bit superficial in how we receive things. We have a very young culture. And so when we come into Zen practice, we tend to hurry ourselves through it in some way without understanding the depth of very simple things and what's behind them and what it's about. So we come through the gate and the gateway is the door that we enter when we come into the temple. And the first thing we do is we take off our shoes. And that practice is a very important practice in taking off our shoes. We don't just kick them off and toss them in the corner. We take a great care, because this deep Zen saying, look beneath your own feet. So the teaching of just the care of your shoes, the care of our shoes then, is about understanding to look beneath your own feet, because that is where our practice is. And that is where the depth of understanding that we each must realize, and that we are each enjoined to understand that we've entered maybe an alternate culture, we could call it, but we have entered a space of deep practice that we hope will go with us wherever we go, and that when we go home to our own temples, our home is a temple, when we go to our own home temples, that we will care for that understanding in the same way, that understand, what is beneath our own feet. So the practice begins with that very simple attitude of the shoe rack. And of course, for many of us too, we want to put our shoes in the very first place. And so we look for the nearest place that we can place our shoes, which is of course just immediately our ego wanting to be in first place, or wanting to be in the best situation. And so truly, if we arrive early, the best thing that we can do is, first of all, to park in the furthest away place, and to put our shoes in the furthest away place, so that anybody who is coming late, who might be held up for some reason, is rushing along, then they get to park in the closest place, so that they have more time to get into the temple. And then their shoes can go in the closest place also, so that they can get into Zazen before the bell rings. So these are practices that very first practice is an understanding of which extends ourselves into the community and recognizes that we are just one, but we are one of many. The Sangha is the deepest part of us, the most difficult practice also in the Triple Treasure. But it begins with that. It begins with taking off our shoes and placing them on the shoe rack, with the understanding that other people are coming, and maybe they're later than I am. And so I will care for their practice too. Very simple thing. And yet we as Americans tend to rush and get the first place. We want to be in the best place possible, each one of us. So the best place possible is the depth between our own feet. That is the best place that we can be, is to understand the depth of that meaning. So that's the very first element of practice. And it doesn't seem like much. It's like, oh, that's not Zen practice, but it truly is. And it's an important one. And when we notice that the shoes have just been kicked off and tossed aside, we sort of feel sad. I mean, our feet are incredibly important in our lives. And it's the Buddha. The Buddha would not allow images of himself, only his footprint. Only his footprint was allowed to remain. And that deep understanding that we stand in the earth, and that where we are is exactly our practice. So that's the first thing we do. And we come down the hall and we come into the Zendo. And here again, we have the triple treasure in so much that we do. So when we enter the Zendo, we take 2 steps in and then we bow. We bow, we don't turn and face the altar, but we bow into the whole room. But that is the bow to Buddha. And then we walk around to our cushion, and we never walk diagonally across the room. We always walk across the footprint of the Tan. We walk across all of the cushions, passing each cushion that is our Sangha. Also, each cushion is a Sangha member. Then we walk around and we find whatever cushion we're going to sit at. And then we bow to the cushion, and that is bowing to the Dharma. because the cushion is what will teach us. The cushion and our sitting practice is our teacher. That's the true teacher. And then we turn always clockwise. And then we bow to the Sangha. And if you are sitting near someone, you will bow to the cushion. If you are on the next cushion, you will bow to them also to recognize, oh, here is the Sangha awakening. And reminding us that we are not alone in the world. We are complete in one another, and we are completed by one another. So those three bows then are primary as we then sit on the cushion and turn again clockwise. When we turn clockwise, from my feeling, I don't remember ever asking my teacher why we turn clockwise, but I understand why we turn clockwise, because we all together allow the energy of the room to be softened and not chaotic. And as we all turn in the same direction, then we have this beautiful dance and this symmetry of motion that doesn't disturb the peace of the Zendo. So that is a very primary practice in understanding this question of being on the cushion and how we approach the cushion. I want to say also that when we enter the Zendo, we read the room, we feel the room. An important practice to feel the energy of the room, to feel one another's state of being, to feel how each one is doing. And that is also an important practice to learn. We don't get that right away. I think that takes time for us to feel comfortable in the Zendo, to be able to read the room. But I recommend reading the room wherever we go. That if you are walking into your office and there are other people in your office, you read that room and you feel the room. You feel how everyone in that room is, and you get a sense for it. So we don't just come blasting in or barge in and make a disturbance with our own, animated activity. We sense it and we feel where people are, and we understand that that is the opening of compassion. To read the room in the first place is to open to compassion. So that, and we feel the sense of the communal practice, because we do not sit our own zazen, we sit zazen together, and we sit as a community, we sit as a sangha. And it's with everyone's practice together that we infuse our zazen with depth and with enlightened presence. So these simple practices are not learned immediately, but they are, everybody here who is listening to me has been practicing long enough to understand what this is about, or what these practices, what practices you can take up if you have not been doing those. So it's very often in sitting next to someone, maybe you sense their difficulty in zazen and your heart opens further to compassion for that person. And well, maybe you are the one who is in pain in your knees and you open to compassion for your own self. But it begins with entering the Zendo in the first place, of opening the heart mind and receiving one another in the beauty of this practice. So let me come to so then I want to talk about light. I want to talk about just two other simple things, at least tonight. I may talk about other things another time. But there's the question of light. So when we sit zazen, we light a candle. We bring fire, the element of fire, into the Zendo. And fire has so many meanings, not just in Zen practice, but in so many of the world's religions. And for us in our Buddhist practice, it is certainly the element of awakening, the element of illumination, the element of presence, purification. And numerous fire ceremonies are in various streams of Buddhism. And those fire ceremonies are conducted in order to remove negative practice, negative happenings around the world, to purify the world and to absorb the negative things. There's Shingon practice of fire. And in that practice, recently, there is a monk who offers these huge fire ceremonies, big fire ceremonies. And the purpose is to lighten the negative aspects of the internet and what the internet does and has been doing to us. I think that was astounding. And I makes me think that I want to take up fire practice of some kind, because it just feels like it's truly doing something in the atmosphere, and it is transformational. So, in the chant that we did, the perfection of wisdom, the perfection of wisdom gives light. And light also represents compassion. The entire world cannot stain her. She is a source of light. So, and the light in Buddhism, the fire, also means wisdom. So it has so many deep, important meanings for us and for everybody in the world. It is primitive in its foundational aspects of civilization. We could not do without fire. It is foundational in the care of the earth. It is foundational in the care of the forests. That not all fires are such, but fires clean the forest and allow the forest to regrow. So it's primal work necessary to the earth. So we come and we light fire, and we sit then with the element of fire in our practice and enter the body of wisdom as we sit zazen. And another element that we do, it's in the care of the senses. You see that there are 2 candles lighted on the altar. They're a little bit faint for you to see, but the candles then represent the eyes of the Buddha. So we never stick in a stick of incense. Can you see this incense stick? We never put a stick of incense lighting from those candles, because it's like poking the Buddha in the eye. So, and the Buddha statue is not worshipped. The statue of the Buddha represents awakening in the human element. Buddha was a human being. He's not a god. So that statue represents awakening for every human. And so the statue is then a reminder that awakening is there for us also. So we come though, and we light a stick of incense. And typically we have 2 sizes of incense. There's this size and there's this size. I'm holding it against my robe, so maybe you can see that one is a long stick. So originally incense, these sizes were used to keep time. And when the incense was finished, then zazen was finished. So this stick is maybe, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 minutes, and the stick is larger. This one might be 40, 50. It's a fairly large stick, so this might be an hour almost. But the smell, one of the skandhas, is a part of, is certainly emptiness itself. All of the skandhas are emptiness. They're, the recognition of that is what we practice. You know, in Soto Zen, we recognize that we are all awakened, and because we are awakened, that is why we come to practice. We also have to realize it. It must be realized. Otherwise, you know, a little bit we're practicing blind, and we kind of hunger for that experience of awakening. And so recognizing that the skandhas are themselves empty, emptiness itself, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, color of sound, taste, smell, touch, no object of mind. These are the skandhas. And you will recall in when working with Kondo Roshi uses that a great deal, and he says, just look, just your eyes. Seeing itself is emptiness. Not me seeing, but seeing, tasting, smelling, touch. All of these are emptiness itself. So so to realize this, of course, is not a simple, easy thing to do, but yet that's it. The simplicity of that is the treasure. It is our true treasure to be able to realize that, to see, not just see, but see. We put the word just on it, we're adding something. See. And smell is part of that. And the incense is part of that, creating a right atmosphere of Zazen with the very, very primal aspect of smell. So there's so many kinds of incense, and each one has a different musical note. I'm going to call it that because I don't know how else to describe it, but smell it, and some of it is very high-pitched and very maybe floral even. And those are not the kinds of incense that we use in meditation. We use something much deeper, a deeper, deeper bass note that awakens in us an immediate response to Zazen, an immediate response of silent joy as we taste the fragrance of the incense. I'm going to light the smaller one because it's easier to see. So then we place, this is for your home practice. So we've lighted the incense and we've got our incense. And when we are sitting Zazen, we'll pretend that I'm a statue. When we are sitting Zazen, we place the incense very close to the edge of the bowl because it's very quiet there. It's very close to the Buddha statue. And so there's the quietness then of the incense and so forth. When we are doing ceremony, we offer the incense in the center of the bowl because we are waking up to a more outward practice. And so we place the incense then in the center of the bowl. I don't know if you can see that really, but you understand. I'm at the back of the bowl here for Zazen, and then in the center of the bowl. And when you realize that, you see, oh yeah, it's much more outgoing. And so that's how we practice with incense. And the fragrance of it holds us in the deep atmosphere of the temple, the deep atmosphere of Zazen, because the sense of smell is the most primal of all of our senses. It hits you. You know that sometimes you smell something and suddenly you are back at 5 years old, or some aspect of your life is touched by that fragrance, and there is no thinking about it. There's no words that come with that. It is a primal, immediate experience, and it comes before knowledge. Experience comes before knowledge. So once we say, oh, I know what that is, I know what that is, that experience then kind of disappears. And so we lose that immediacy of the experience. And of course, we cannot cling to it or hold on to it either. That's not something we can do either, but we can recognize the experience and honor it. And that's the experience of the skanda. So if you have had that experience yourself, maybe that helps you toward the question of see or hear, just hear, which is awakening itself. The awakened mind is simply that. So I think that's all I wanted to say tonight, because I hoped also that we would have some discussion and questions about any of this. These are just simple things to begin with, because you can only handle so much. We can only take in so much at a time, and realize the depths of those practices itself. So if we were to just take those, how we enter the zendo, sense the zendo, how we all turn in the same direction on the cushion, feeling the energy of the zendo and feeling the energy of each person in that movement together. This is all big practice that becomes quite natural to us as we take it up. It's quite joyful, and practice is meant to be extremely joyful. And the joy of having the Sangha all operate in that beautiful rhythm and dance is happiness itself. So maybe you have some questions then about what I've said so far that you might wonder about. I have to tell you, I haven't talked at all very much recently, and I'm quite enjoying myself tonight. So yes, Karen.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you, Eido-san. My question is it customary for the incense to vary between temples? And if so, how have you experienced that? Because I know I associate certain smells with certain places I've practiced, and it's very meaningful to me.
Yes, it definitely is the case that temples have their own fragrance, and we have a special one that we have at Ensuji. It's a Ryokan-san fragrance, and Eiheiji has its own fragrance. We received a box of Eiheiji incense from Ayahiga recently, and we will use that at Steve's ceremony. And that's another special fragrance. And they have a depth in them that you recognize and you cannot describe except to receive it. There is a wonderful incense ceremony that we did, Ryuzen practiced it and did it for us years and years ago when we were doing open gate art practice. And so in this particular ceremony, a special kind of incense, very, very excellent, precious incense, is put on top of the charcoal. And you have to keep it enclosed and the Sangha, the participants are sitting in a circle. So the incense holder is passed around from one to the other, and you take a whiff and you just hold it, and then you pass it on to the next person, and it goes all the way around the room. And then immediately you must write a haiku image of the fragrance that you received. And then you share the haiku. It's incredible. I'll never forget the experience of it. It was very, very wonderful. We should try it sometime. It's not so hard to do because the incense does set up some kind of image in us, a picture image that is beyond the issue of language. It's primary, it's before language. And so you get this image and you just get some great haikus that come out of fragrance, just smelling incense. So there's a lot of practices around incense itself. And yes, every temple has a special fragrance. Some don't, some, I mean, we don't have a special one here, of course. We don't have so much incense makers. But I will also say that the quality of incense has deteriorated in recent years because the fragrances that are made of cedar or something like that have begun to disappear, or they've been used up. And so there's more and more chemicals put into the incense. So it's not as pure as it used to be. And very few people have the kind of money to be able to purchase some incense, which can be, $5,000-$10,000 for a small box of incense in Japan, because it is this rare experience of something so precious that it just becomes fiercely expensive. The Australia grows the trees for what's the big fragrance? I can't think of the word at the moment. What kind of tree it is that makes
eucalyptus?
No, it's like cedar, but it's not cedar. It's
sandalwood.
Sandalwood. Thank you. Sandalwood. Sandalwood trees are in Australia, and Australia is the largest supplier of sandalwood. I know this because my son-in-law is an investment person. He has his own investment company. And so he has created investment in the growing of sandalwood trees. And so, I know about that. And it takes 5 years to be able to get a harvest of sandalwood. So it's precious and difficult to grow. And but that's Australia does the bulk of sandalwood around the world. So all I can say is that you go to other temples and you appreciate the experience of the various fragrances that are just superb and beautiful and very exciting. And that you've gone to a very sacred place, walked in because you just sense the depth of the fragrance itself. So I say the floral ones that you can buy over at Radiance and that kind of thing, they're very high pitched, and you want something that is deep and those floral fragrances are not temple fragrances. They're not that's not temple incense. It's for your house or, for your kitchen or something like that. So anyway, yeah, any other questions? Yes, question, yeah.
So sometimes there's like when you walk into a zendo, you're walking in with one particular foot. Is that also here, like you walk in with your left foot? Is that what you also practice here?
Thank you for the question. So were you able to hear the question? With which foot do you enter the zendo? So the question is, in our particular zendo, the Buddha is sitting here. Typically, the Buddha is in the center of the floor in a zendo. But because we only have one room to practice in, we set the Buddha against the wall so that we can transform from the zendo to a Dharma hall for chanting, practice for ceremony. If the Buddha is in the middle of the hall, it's really hard to do ceremony like that. But you enter with your opening to the Buddha. So you don't enter. So in this temple, you enter with your right foot, crossing the threshold, enter with your right foot, because then you are open to the Buddha. So that's the first foot stepping in. And that's true of anywhere you go. If you see that the Buddha is in the center of the hall and you enter from the left, you enter with your left foot. If you're to the right, you enter with your right foot of the Buddha statue. So your body remains open to the Buddha. So thank you for that question. I didn't think of it, yeah, as in the entering, yeah. Anything else? Any other questions or comments or thoughts with one another?
I think it's our practice to start with we sit zazen with the electronic candle,
I
and
know,
then we
I'm
light.
thinking- I think
and
I
then
want to change. I want to change to a real.
So,
I don't know why we got started on that. I think it is because we had fragrance candles or something. I don't remember why that we got started with that. But I think we need to go back to fire. Anyway, sorry, Karen.
no, I was just going to say, so we have one candle for zazen and then different candles for ceremony.
Yeah.
Again, is that customary to
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's one candle for zazen and 2 candles for ceremony. Yeah, that's customary. Yeah.
Did you say that you do not use the candles to light the incense because that's poking Buddha in the eye?
Well, only on the main altar. Yeah. There's another smaller candle to the right of those 2 tall lights. And it's from that smaller one that you light the incense from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there are actually 3 candles on the main altar, but the little tiny one is what you light incense from. But I didn't light any incense there for tonight. So, yeah. Anything else? Yeah. And all of these things just become natural. You know, in the beginning, it seems like, oh my goodness, there are all these rules and we do this and we don't do that. But, you know, they're not so much rules as they are care and recognition of the meaning and the purpose of what we are doing. And so, you know, to think that they are rules and problems, and that's this misunderstanding of our practice. It's a question of care. So we care for the altar. The altar, Kobun Roshi used to refer to it as the realm of the gods. And, you know, very often brand new people come in and they sit way up at the front, and I chuckle because they're just way in the realm of the gods and they don't know what to do, and they're so forth and so on. But there's an American heart that just says, I am up front. I can go wherever I want, you know. And really what you want to do if you're brand new, you want to sit in the back and observe and see how to do things. So I always chuckle when I see that, when this is not Fujaku-san. Fujaku is just fine. He was told where to sit because I wanted him in the camera so that you could see him. So we'll bring it down to, why don't you come down and stand here so they can see your face?
So Eido-san, I have a question.
Yeah.
The Buddha that's at the head there.
Yeah.
You said that he's not worshipped.
Right.
What is the attitude that we take towards that statue when we're bowing or when we enter into the zendo? Is there a proper attitude that we should be cultivating towards that?
Well, the attitude is, once again, that is a representative of the awakened human. And when we bow, we in essence are bowing to the Buddha of the self, of oneself. And we surrender the ego in the midst of that bow. And that is the meaning of the bow. And that is to realize the bow is to realize that when we bow and we go down to the floor, we are empty. And so once again, it's a representative, the Buddha is the representative of the awakened human being. And so it is a reminder of our own awakening and our own journey with the feet, as I started out with the feet, our own journey with what is beneath our own feet to that awakening. Even though we are awakened, but to the realization of that awakening. This is the important point. So, but the Buddha is fully realized awakening. And so we place that as a reminder of our awakening, and we honor awakening. I mean, Zen practice doesn't make sense without it.
But we shouldn't, but we shouldn't necessarily, I mean, if we feel a devotion or a gratitude for that awakening, we should, or should we try and bring that forth as much as possible and direct it towards that statue?
I don't know that you can willfully run after that.
Mm.
I think that that's the kind of thing that comes in the immediacy of practice. I think anytime we run after a propagation of a particular kind of thing, I think we've created an object of it, and we don't want to objectify anything. So, so that occurs in times in our practice, and it's just one of those things that comes up now and then. And of course, we honor the Buddha, and we do not deface the three treasures. We do not deface the Buddha, the Dharma, or the Sangha. And so we treat it with great care. And so, but, you know, I don't necessarily, our whole practice is nurturing that, I want to say. So to isolate one thing is to create an object with it, an object within ourselves. That's my feeling, Steve, what I think you're asking.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah. I mean, so it's one of those things where if we hold the totality of practice, we just hold it in the heart and we hold it in our arms, then we can't get away from it. And something is always there to help us awaken. So we needn't worry about whether we should be doing something that will bring about awakening. We don't, it's not something that has to be worried. The myriad things come forward. And so to hold the totality of practice, to me, is that complete embrace is a good place to stand on our own feet underneath us. So put your face closer so they can see you, lean in. So yeah, so there's Fujaku-san, and thank you so much, Fujaku-san, for the banister.
And thank you, everybody,
Yeah.
for this. It's been wonderful to be here for these last couple of days, and I look forward to staying here for this Saturday. But thank you very much. It's been wonderful to have the hospitality.
Yeah, I hope you'll be here Saturday, because he will be here for practice on Saturday. So, yeah. Anything else, anybody?
Eido-san,
Yes.
how much does being in nature, what if we're in nature and we come into the Zendo, does that have a special meaning to it? How much time in nature helps us with our practice?
Well, the thing is that you're never not in nature. I mean, inside is also nature. This house is made of wood. This house is we are standing inside a tree at the moment. And so we're always in it. So I don't like to make a difference between inside and outside, even though it's very gorgeous to be outside and to take a tree shower. But we don't make a difference between inside and outside. All of it is nature. All of it is complete. I mean, I fully recognize how gorgeous it is. And we did outside practice in the springtime, and we just were so invigorated by shower of the trees and the energy of the trees. And I hope that we will do that again this spring and summer. And it's very invigorating. There's no doubt about it, because your sense of width goes way out. You feel so wide in practice. And so, so I appreciate that, but there's no difference between inside and outside. Just a different experience. Anything else, anybody? No, I got my head a little bit shaved and I didn't want to go totally bare, but I have to shave my head for an ordination. So I went a little almost to the end just so that it wouldn't shock me when it comes up. So anyway, it feels good. So. All right, everybody. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's just about 8:15-ish. So thank you very much for your practice tonight. Let me just get a bell and we'll just do 3 bows. Here we are. Yeah. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassed, I vow to become it.